weekly dividends are still here. We are redoing my most popular video that I posted about over 6 months ago, and QDTE, the one that started it all on this insane weekly dividend ETF journey. We have to do an update. It's down all time. It's been falling slightly. The yield is a lot more consistent now. We have so many things to look at and compare to our last video, so I hope you guys enjoy. This is still one of my favorite ETFs for a number of reasons. There are some downsides and there are some risks, and we're going to cover all of that and more in this video. But before we do that, don't forget, if you like dividend investing, stock market investing, all things under money, you are in the right place. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. And thank you guys so much for having my last video get to almost 25,000 views. Let's roll that intro. QDTE is where it started all on the weekly dividends for me. It was my favorite for a very long time. We had all these Roundhill funds before we had the yieldmax funds, before we had the Defiance ETFs. So this is a big deal. This is the one that started it all. And we can see currently they're boasting a 105% distribution rate. That's all based off of the last payment, which was a large one, I'm guessing. And the price has come down, which is also affecting that. We're going to calculate the true dividend yield for this guy, but I want to give a little bit of a background on this one. It has been trading for quite a while now. This was the first 0DTE option to buy, I think. I don't know if xdte came out at the same time, but QDTE was the first one for me, right? And so the goals, they wanted a weekly paying ETF. And so they made one. And you might think, well, why haven't they done this before? And I don't know. I don't know if it's because dividend investing is on the rise, if ETFs are on the rise, but they did it and it made a huge difference. The AUM is now 660 million. I think it's even above that. I think it's closer to 680 last time I checked. This is what started the full weekly dividend ETF account, which if you guys are interested, I'll link that at the end of this video, which that account has been doing extremely well. I'm just super excited to see what it's going to continue to do, and I'm pumped with what it has done. We can see that, yeah, they wanted the income potential and they wanted to harness volatility by 0DTE calls. So what that means is 0DTE stands for 0 days till expiration. These are short-term covered calls that they use to get a little bit of money every single day, and thus the ability to pay out every single week. Now, if you think daily ETFs are on the way, I don't know. I don't know how they could do that, but maybe they are. Maybe they're in the future. And one thing with the daily calls that made a big difference is how they illustrate down here. So the market covered calls, when you have a long position, you're holding everything overnight, right? For a full month, you're owning it market hours and pre-market, post-market, and when the markets aren't even open, you're still holding it. With these 0DTEs, you can buy it at the open, sell the calls at the close, and just hold the underlying asset overnight. And there's a lot of things that happen with volatility before and after the markets even open or close. So it was like a groundbreaking thing. And I was like, why has no one ever done this? It makes so much sense. So we can see, yes, March 7 was the inception. We're almost up on 1 full year. And I will be doing a full year review video for QDTE when that does happen. Expense ratio is still high, just under 1%. So don't forget that. And don't forget taxes as well, because I don't think the taxes are easy on these distributions, which is why I do it in a Roth IRA. So I don't have to pay taxes at all. So nothing much has changed with QDTE. The strategy worked pretty well. They're continuing it. They're even putting out new weekly funds, which I'm really excited about. YBTC is one on Bitcoin that pays weekly. I'll link that video at the end for you guys as well, because it's pretty crazy. So I'm happy with what it's been doing. I'm happy to see that the community has really been involved with this one and people really seem to like it. And I think Roundhill made a great choice with it. And now let's see how they can keep up with the yieldmax ETFs. But let's check out those distribution histories. So I pulled up QDTE on Seeking Alpha, and we can see they had some phenomenal payments recently, an 87-cent and an 80-cent regular weekly distribution. Typically they're ranging in the mid to high 20s. And so these 80-cent were insane. And we've seen some lows too. It's not all peaches and cream. We had a 16-cent low, 20 cents, 14, and 9 at the lowest, which was still pretty early on in the fund's life. But still, you have to think about it. Prior to this crazy 87-cent high, 57 cents was the high. I don't know why they rocketed up. I think it had something to do with taxes is what the consensus was. in the comments on the video, on my last weekly video. So that's what I'm going to go with. I agree that maybe so they were putting out more money because of taxes to not hold it into the new year. But all in all, absolutely crazy. So I counted them up. We had 42 distributions, and it's paid out $13.33 total. So when you divide that, you get a average amount of 31.7 cents per distribution. Now, there's a lot of math involved with this, and it gets a little bit hairy. But what we're going to do now is we'll calculate exactly how much money, what our actual percentage has been, the money that we've made on the fund. So if we take that 13.33 and we divide it by the current price of 39.41, and then we're going to multiply this by 100, you have a yield of roughly 34%, just under 34%, which is what Seeking Alpha also has it as. If we go to, we'll go back to dividends, and then you go to the dividend scorecard, we can see they have it at 33.35. So even a little lower than what I calculated it at, which isn't bad at all. A 33.5% distribution rate that pays weekly is insane. And I know what you're thinking. There's downsides. It's beaten down, and it is. It has lost some price value, but I'm gonna negate that with one simple thing. Let's put it into a drip calculator. Back on dividendchannel.com, their drip calculator is my favorite. So for those of you that don't know, drip calculators are like reinvestment calculators that auto do it. So basically, it takes the full data of QDTE and invests 10K at the beginning with drip on and drip off and tells us what the results would have been. So you can see how much does reinvesting your dividends actually work? Is it worth it? And so we can see here, QDTE in under a year has had a 16.8% return with dividends reinvested and a 14.35% return with dividends not reinvested. Now, I'm a big fan of reinvesting your dividends. I love drip. I do it with almost every dividend paying stock or ETF that I have, and it's done well for me. And it's really key. If you're able to go without that money, if you don't need your dividends for income, it's key for growth, in my opinion. So we see an annualized return of 20%. And that's with dividends reinvested. With dividends not reinvested, 17%, which doesn't make a huge difference. 3% over a year is still kind of a lot, but over a 20-year span with drip versus not drip, you'd see a crazy difference, I promise you. So when I first put these videos out, everyone said, not everyone, a lot of people said this is too good to be true. And I didn't disagree with them because I didn't know what was going to happen. But now we see it. QDTE has performed really, really well. But there are some caveats. I'm not going to just give you guys the good side. QDTE underperformed SPY. It underperformed QQQ, I believe. And it's not necessarily supposed to outperform them. Because when you look at growth versus dividend investing, dividends, you want that money immediately. You want to invest it in other things. You want to spend it. And growth, you're just holding it for the long term. We have not seen any of these weekly funds in a red market. We have not seen it in a consistent bear market. We've not seen it in a market correction yet. They get beaten down pretty heavily when we get bad news, like with rate cuts not happening. We got that news and they all tanked. The markets all tanked as a whole. Slowed down a lot of things going on in the stock market, kind of reversed our whole trend, to be honest. So that was a bit of a bummer, but we don't know what these are going to continue to do. And we have to remember that just because they've paid out 20% this year, next year it might be 5% if we see a terrible turn in the market. But the key is I like dividends because in a good market, in a great market, they're still good. In a middle market where you're not going up or down, they're still pretty solid most of the time. They're still paying out dividends. You're still making more money. And in a red market, I don't know. And so I like owning these dividend stocks because it gives me that freedom of, even if the market's trading sideways for a number of years, I'm still getting money. I'm still having income from my money. So those are my thoughts. Let's put 10K back into this thing at our now rediscovered yield of 34% and see how much money you would make with that $10,000 invested. We are back on Market Beat. And I'm going to do my disclaimer. It's not financial advice. I'm not trying to predict what this thing will do. I'm just saying what it could do if it carries out this yield. I always get comments saying, why do you do this? I like to see what funds can do in the long run. I like to see the potential. If it held up this yield, what it could make people. And so that's why I do this. I'm not predicting it. I'm not a stock market analyst or anything like that. So I hope you guys understand that. But I do appreciate the comments nonetheless. So I put in our amount for 10K. It's 253.74 shares at a share price of $39.41. $0 contributed annually. We're not putting any more money into it. Our tax rate's 0. We're in a Roth IRA in this idea. And we have our dividend yield of 34%. Now, we're not increasing the dividend or decreasing the dividend because I can't predict it, and we're not factoring in NAV erosion, which I know can be a factor, and we've seen it be a little bit of a factor with this one, with QDTE. But it also depends on what the market's doing, because the market has just been beaten up. So it's not even necessarily NAV erosion. The market's just down. So I'm not factoring NAV erosion. I can't do it. I can't calculate it. It's an inconceivable number. So we're not going to put it in here. But think about it yourself if you think there's going to be a lot of NAV erosion. So with 1 year, you invest $10K. Your ending balance for that 1 year is $14,033.79. Because you're continually buying these with drip on, because we have drip on and we're paid out weekly. So the drip is insane. It increases our total return, and our annual dividend income from this point onward is $5,661. Our first year of dividend payments paid us $3,400, which is wild. In 1 year, the payment is just, it's crazy. If we bump it up to 5 years, you begin to see compounding really take place. Your $10,000 is now worth $54,436. We used to look at 34% as like an impossible thing, but it's been performing well. We've had funds outperform this from yieldmax as well. So it's not an impossible number anymore. Your now annual dividend income is $22,000. Imagine making $22,000 every single year from just a 10K investment. And your total dividend payments over the last 5 years, $37,453. So you 5x your money in 10 years. Sorry, in 5 years. Oh my gosh, I thought it was 10. In 5 years, you 5x your money, which is crazy. When you bump it up to 10, it's just going to get more and more insane. After 10 years, your $10,000 are now worth $296,000. And get this, from this portfolio, you now make $120,000 a year. You make, double the average American salary a year just in dividends from a 10K investment. Over your 10 years, you have been paid $241,000 from dividends. So we're going to kick it up. We're going to go straight to 20. And you'll see how these numbers just skyrocket. And now we're in the millions. So now you're a millionaire. You've held it for 20 years. You've put those dividends right back into it. And after 10K invested 20 years prior, your ending balance is $8.781 million. You are a multimillionaire. Total dividend payments over the 20 years are $7.4 million. And off your near $9 million portfolio now from just this one ETF, your annual dividend income is $3.5 million. So compounding is just continuing to be a factor with this. And that's what people don't understand. And I love drip, like I said prior, but this is what it can do for you. If you did this with drip on versus not on, the results are very different because one, you're dripping and compounding weekly, and two, it's that money going back into you. It's into your future. It's into your retirement. So remember that. And I always like to throw this out there. Let's say you're a 25-year-old that started work. You've saved up 10K and you're going to invest it in something. And so you choose QDTE. And at that point, its trading average is decent. You've just held it and you're actually looking. My cat's deciding to join the video. But you're holding it. The price has stayed the same. There's no NAV erosion and the yield has stayed consistent, which we don't know if that's going to happen or not. But let's say it did. So after 30 years, you now retire. So you went from a 25-year-old, you're now a 55-year-old with your investment. And your 10K investment is now worth $260 million. That is the power of compound investing. That is the power of these weekly ETFs. Again, if they trade the way that they have been, which we, again, don't know. NAV erosion could be a factor. If you added 10% of NAV erosion a year, it would definitely be a disadvantage. But over that 30-year period, you've been paid out $219 million in dividends. And now, every single year, you are making $105 million in dividends from this fund. Oh, if only. If the channel keeps growing and we do well enough, I'll invest 10K into QDTE and I'll watch it for 30 years. And if you guys are still watching YouTube at that point, if you're still interested in the content, I'll put a video out for you. But it's going to take me a while to save up 10K because I just spent $2,000 today on stock alone for the number of challenges in this account, which I am happy to do, but I am not a rich man. And I'm a lot less rich than I was this morning. So, as always, I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Check out these two videos. See if you're interested. I think you'll like them if you like this one, and I'll see you in the next one.